I like thinking about art because it can mean more than one thing. It's often ambiguous, not so straightforward, and we can find metaphors. We can make our own meanings and connections. It might mean something different for you than it does for me. Hi, my name is Ray Williams. I work as an educator at UT's Blanton Museum of Art, and I'm delighted to share with you a fantastic painting that is currently hanging in the galleries, one that has a strong draw for me and for many of the visitors I work with in the museum. The painting is by a young artist of South Asian and African American descent, Mequitta Ahuja. I learned in my research that the artist counts among her influences colonial American portraiture and Indian narrative paintings. She uses her own body as visual source material and has coined the term automythography to speak to this fusion of self and story that she's interested in exploring in her work. Take a moment to look. It's a large work. The figure is over life-sized. Notice your first reactions, any feelings or associations that come up for you as you look. If you were to describe the figure in just one word, what might that word be? Blanton visitors often characterize their first reactions with words like powerful, hopeful, strong, purposeful. Some people see the figure as burdened, struggling against a weight. Rich works of art like this are capable of suggesting multiple meanings to us. Sometimes our reactions give us insight into how our own experiences and identities influence our thinking. Through a partnership with Ascension Seton's outpatient psychiatry program, I'm often working with adults recovering from trauma. And every group of these trauma survivors is drawn to this painting by Mequitta Ahuja. And often they see the metaphor that they find meaningful is that she's stepping forward after a break from a dark, traumatic past. And she's looking towards the blue sky, and it feels like a powerful break. Let's keep looking. The left panel is abstract or non-objective. The artist is not choosing to depict anything recognizable in this panel, but that doesn't mean that the panel holds no significance, that it's irrelevant to our interpretation. Let's look at the details. So many different ways of handling the paint. Long, vertical strokes of color, drips, occasional sparks of white. And the gold area at the far left creates a curving contour with the darker mass of colors. These decisions might encourage us to focus on the artist's varied use of paint throughout the painting. Or perhaps we're invited to think metaphorically. The painting has a definite division between the two panels, emphasized by the gap that exposes white wall. There's also white paint, a shape that transcends the gap and creates a sense of explosion or generative energy. The right panel is dominated by the figure. What do we learn from attending to her stance? Where is she going? Hair is important here, and in much of Mequitta Ahuja's work. Hair has intimate and familiar associations for all of us. It evokes a sense of the body. Also, cultural identity. I notice how the swirls of black paint develop from what I know is hair, taking on their own life as abstract forms. And in one passage, we see the stars in the night sky, the universe. I think the white paint is kind of important. We've seen it across the gap. We see it in the night sky of that black mass of hair. And we see a major spark right in the figure's head. Creativity, imagination reside here. The title of the work is Parade. I read this long interview with Mequitta Ahuja about this particular painting. She talked about the gap as representing an important rupture. She talked about, the seat of imagination and creativity being in the head. She talked about the cultural significance of hair and how a lot of her work is about hair. But the quote that I took from that whole interview was, "She is a parade of one." She is a parade of one. You may be wondering about the figure's clothing. There's a beautiful print pattern that may speak to Ahuja's cultural identity, may remind us of Indian prints, perhaps. The other thing I noticed about it is these colors seem so bright in relationship to the rest of the painting, but if you look carefully, all the colors that are associated with the figure and her clothing also appear in the abstract left-hand panel. You'll find the pinks and the turquoises right in there, in the murkier mass of the abstract panel. Is this an artist's choice to create visual coherence, or is that a metaphorical connection between the colorful mass in the left-hand panel and the striding forward figure? Looking at a painting like this can speak to us in so many ways. We might be just amazed by the variety of ways of handling paint, the artist's mastery of her materials. And I think we really tend to connect with this figure. We wonder about her experience. We wonder about her past. We wonder where she's going. I think this is one of the big things that works of art and works of fiction can do for us. They can introduce us to people and situations that may or may not be like us, but they can expand our thinking. We can come to care about their experience. It feels big and important. My work has always been about creative capacity and weaving negatives into positives, the holes in the history, the gaps in the scholarship, and the fact that there's so much to oppose right now. From my point of view, these things for artists are opportunities. Mequitta Ahuja.